The first female emperor was born in the kingdom of 10,000 demons, and the shadow of the new emperor's rebellion never faded away. Before the Empress, there was a large monster who wrote the book, The Little Demon Story. The book was damaged and scattered throughout the kingdom of 10,000 demons during the Civil War, and its content could shake the stability of the dynasty. Therefore, the Empress arranged for Huo Bufan to retrieve the book. Chapter 1. Teeth Slave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have you also heard about it? The recent incident has really caused a stir. That guy is said to have fled to us and is looking for the next unlucky one to take action. The tea house was bustling with people coming and going, leaving and sitting. If someone without a clear idea came and was still struggling with where to sit, the position had already been taken by others. I'm telling you, that guy is so disgusting, he's picky at night, picking. Before he could finish speaking, the waiter handed over steamed garlic-flavored pork ribs. Let's chat slowly. There are still a few dishes that haven't been served yet. You can use them for now, and the rest will come soon. As the waiter left, the two diners picked up their chopsticks. What are you taking people for? Asked the diner holding chopsticks in his left hand. The diner holding chopsticks in his right hand leaned forward slightly and pointed to his graying teeth, saying, he not only took the life of a demon, but also dug out his teeth. Look at what you're saying, it's as if you've seen it before. The last piece of pork ribs was also eaten by a diner holding chopsticks in their left hand. All right. You eat taro. I'm telling you, these are all things my good friends told me, 1,000 words. Look at you, you've burned your tongue. Drink tea and drink tea. The diner spat out his tongue and took a sip of warm tea, then continued, it's true, I'll tell you, this news is even more true than real gold and silver. Excuse me, today's beef balls are all sold out. This is the garlic parsley, and the dry fried beef heron. Please help me change the beef balls into chicken feet with soy sauce, said the diner, putting down his right chopsticks. The waiter blinked and said, okay, I'll change it for you right away. We didn't explain it to the two young masters because the dishes are sold out. So the third young master asked me to serve them a toothpick beef. Toothpick beef. There's no one who drinks morning tea and eats toothpick beef. Said the diner who picked up the chopsticks in his right hand, it's okay. Since third young master has sent it, we don't have any intention of refusing. Just come up. Okay, then take your time and I'll serve it to you. The waiter walked briskly towards the kitchen. Why, would you like breakfast tea with toothpick beef? Don't worry about whether this toothpick is beef or not. Don't blame my brother for not reminding you. Be careful when walking at night recently, and it's uncertain that one day you'll have all your teeth taken by that guy. The diner put down his left chopsticks and rolled up his sleeve, saying, what are you afraid of? I can deal with 7 or 8 young masters like this. Are you afraid of him? I'm afraid of nothing. This behavior attracted the attention of the surrounding diners. Dear fellow villagers, my younger brother is not talented. I have also practiced witchcraft for a few years. You said I am not good at dealing with some big demons and Guangong, but I am more than enough to deal with small demons who specialize in killing demons and killing their lives, and do such dirty things. What do you call your brother? Asked the diner beside you. I was born to eat and sleep with my left hand. I used to be a bear demon, and those who knew me called me Xiaoyao. After speaking, Xiaoyao patted the table with one hand, his cheeks bulging, and with just a gentle blow, a flame spewed out from his mouth. The distance was so subtle that it seemed to be only half a step away from other diners, but when someone curious wanted to reach out and touch it, the flame could be retracted. I have been practicing the fire demon technique hard before, and I came here today to take the head of this shameless little demon. He took a deep breath, and the flames were sucked back into his mouth. He picked up a wanted slip and nailed it to the door with a flying knife. If anyone has any recent experiences or incidents related to this monster committing a crime, feel free to contact me at any time. I drink morning tea here every morning. After taking his last sip of tea, Zhuxiong put on a tiger skin and walked out of the tea house with the cheers and applause of the group of diners. Hey, my guest, your beef chow fun and toothpick beef are packed. The waiter nearby handed the packed food. You haven't been burned, have you? My brother is not big or small. Tell third young master not to take offense. The waiter didn't say much, he clapped his hands and took off a layer of skin. No, a small fire won't hurt me. Then you go to the front desk to settle the bill. I need to go and do something else, he said after talking big. Zhuxiong didn't idle either. After leaving the tea house, he searched everywhere for the scene where the guy had committed the crime, and these places had already been cleaned up. Is this? Zhuxiong walked towards a wall. He took a deep breath, and a familiar demonic smell came from a knife mark on the wall. This is. He took a few more sips and, to confirm his guess, put his finger on it. The burning sensation from the sharp knife marks on his fingers reminded him of what his master had said before. If the fire technique is well controlled, it can attach fire to weapons. When dealing with people, weapons usually leave a long lasting and scorching mark. Zhuxiong muttered to himself. Zhuxiong seemed to be able to see this person's swordsmanship along the scar. This person was very strange, even though he was using a sword, he was using it the same way as a sword. Moreover, this swordsmanship seemed familiar to him. Although he couldn't remember it, it was definitely not taught by his master. Moreover, this guy was very cunning. He didn't even kill the demon, but took advantage of his carelessness and used his sword to stab the opponent to death. Zhuxiong stroked these knife marks and said, the depth of the marks varies, sometimes shallow and sometimes deep. It seems that he is a beginner, or the guy who was chopped by him is very skilled. He then looked at the nearby restaurant. In the evening, Zhuxiong, who was drunk, walked out of the restaurant surrounded by a group of girls. Listen up, it's still you guys. I'll come back tomorrow. The passers-by saw Zhuxiong, who was full of alcohol, avoiding him one after another. He walked all the way towards the place where the sun had set, until the sun had set and he arrived at a river. This wine. This woman. Really. He knelt down on the ground and began to surge the power of the wilderness in his stomach towards the river. A mist gradually rose, and the surrounding street lights were blown out one by one. The guy wearing a bamboo hat appeared from behind Zhuxiong. He pulled out a knife and pressed his finger against the back of the knife. I don't know what he said, but there was actually a fire burning on the blade. Although the brightness was not high, it looked from a distance as if it was lighting with a torch, and it didn't attract the attention of other monsters. It's you, right? Zhuxiong threw away the wine jug in his hand. That guy didn't talk nonsense, he immediately stepped forward. Zhuxiong quickly dodged, his cheeks bulging, and he blew air suddenly, a burst of flames spraying towards the guy. The fierce fire dissipated, and the guy disappeared without a trace. Zhuxiong quickly saw the river. A figure surged up from the river, and the knife in his hand immediately ignited flames. This time, the flames were extremely dazzling, completely ignoring the danger of being discovered, and suddenly attacked Zhuxiong. Just as Zhuxiong took a deep breath, the tip of the knife had already pierced. A few flying knives smashed open the knife in that guy's hand, but he still slapped Zhuxiong in the chest. Lao Zhua, do you have anything to do? This morning, the diner with chopsticks in his right hand, holding multiple flying knives, stood in front of Zhuxiong. You pig head, if you don't come again, I'll die. That guy became angry and embarrassed, and he rushed over again. Zhuxiong took a deep breath and prepared to repeat his old trick. His friend immediately threw 5 flying knives in an attempt to stop the charging guy. Not good. Old left. That guy caught 2 of the 5 flying knives and threw them at Zhuxiong. Even though Zhuxiong's friend used his body as a weapon, the flying knives still penetrated his body and pierced into Zhuxiong's body. Xiong was panicked by the sudden blow, but the enemy had already arrived in front of him. The guy cut open Xiong's mouth with a knife, and the raging fire rushed uncontrollably in all directions. With a single hook punch, Xiong was knocked unconscious. The guy looked at Xiong, who had fainted, and he raised his knife high. "Stop it!" A figure appeared from the river, as if stepping on a flat boat. "This is not something you can kill just by saying you can kill demons." The guy in the cold light also shuddered. Chapter 2. Teeth Slave, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Several water columns converged from the river, and the people on the river pointed with their hands, causing 2 water columns to charge straight towards that guy. The moment the water column touched that weapon, it turned into gas one after another. "Are you running wild on my territory, not even willing to say who you are?" The person in the purple-black shirt walked to the river, and wherever he went, there was a slight chill, neither ice nor cold, just right. "Listen up, I'm the Grand Master of this demon mansion, Huo. He drew his long sword and pointed it at the guy. A dewdrop gathered at the tip of the sword, and in just a blink of an eye, the dewdrop turned into a column of water in the river, all of which was sucked into the sword. "Are you the Guangong? But I heard that Tu Yuan is in charge of this place." Xiong's friend slowly got up and said. "Take good care of your friend. If you don't have the ability, don't take on this kind of job," Huo said and threw a wanted notice over. That guy didn't intend to continue listening to their chat. He puffed up his cheeks and a big fire erupted from his mouth. Huo swung his sword and a water column rushed away again, creating a huge mist that blended with fire and water and spread out in all directions. "Not good. Keep an eye on your friend." Before the words fell, Xiong's body had been thrown into the river, while his friend's head had been chopped off, leaving only a headless corpse. "Damn it," Huo said. The next day, information about the 2 victims quickly spread, and people on the street were discussing it. In order to prevent the continued appearance of the killed demons, a curfew could only be enforced, and the number of demons patrolling at night was increased. Huo watched as 2 corpses were displayed in front of him. Although he had no knowledge of these 2 monsters, it was indeed Huo who had posted a wanted notice about the Tooth Slave in other places before. He had planned to attract some ambitious individuals with demon power cultivation greater than the Tooth Slave to join in the encirclement, but the unexpected arrival did not meet Huo's expectations. They did their best, Grandpa doesn't have to blame himself. The waiter from the tea house handed a cup of tea. "Have you checked their household thoroughly?" The waiter lifted the white cloth of the headless corpse and said, "Grandpa, the headless right-handed person, named Yu Swine, has no parents at home. He was originally a pig monster, and his demon pill was on his chest." "What about this one with a head?" "This is Xiong, who still has a wife and daughter and is a bear demon. Both of them have no serious work and have been engaged in." As he spoke, he pulled out a wrinkled wanted notice from Xiong's clothes, mainly relying on the bounty of the wanted notice to make a living. "Everything has a spirit, take out their demon pill and send it to Xiong's family," said Huo. "Do you want to give some more?" Huo sighed and said, "So, find a carpenter to carve a head for the right swine, and when it is ready, send the body of the 2 demons and the demon pill back to Xiong's home and accompany them with half of the reward, so that their wife and daughter can bury him and his son." Huo extended his finger and said, "How many times have you counted?" "Grand Duke, so far, the Tooth Slave has killed 10 demons, taking away their demon pills and teeth every time," said the waiter. "Teeth, is there any use for finding demon teeth elsewhere?" Huo asked. "No, the characteristics of the demon tooth are related to the monster itself, but the demon tooth itself has no effect, even the venomous tooth of the snake demon is just a tool for injecting toxins." After that, the waiter handed Huo a book. "We also did not find any record of the demon tooth used for cultivation in the Wanyao Tong. Huo frowned and said, I often hear about the practice of killing demons and taking pills. This is indeed the first time someone has taken teeth. Did the gong miss anything? Said the waiter. Missing. Huo Qing looked up and pondered for a moment. The waiter slowly pulled out a strand of hair from Shuxiong's body. What is this? De Gong said before that guy once slapped Shuxiong, and he probably never thought he would keep this. Looking at this strand of hair, Huo Qing had some thoughts. This is the fox's fur. Tomorrow, gather all the fox demons in the demon hall to the tea house. Bring me everything that can and cannot be transformed. Gather all the doctors in the demon hall who know about dentistry. Why summon doctors? Asked the waiter. Since teeth cannot be used for demonic cultivation and cannot be used as materials for forging weapons, then it will take a lot of effort to deal with these. Perhaps this demon. Perhaps it is a naturally toothless and ugly guy who needs a demon pill to increase his demonic power, while also needing teeth to fill his own teeth. The waiter exclaimed. Even so, Huo Qing still felt that things were not that simple. If it were really that simple, that guy wouldn't have to go to great lengths to kill so many demons. He could just find a famous doctor to give him enough money and make up for it. Wait a minute, go check again. There are people around who have a habit of collecting teeth. Arrange for someone to check the dyeing workshop to see if the recent white paint is different from the usual ones. Looking at these two corpses, Huo Qing supported his forehead and said, "It's really careless." At night, the monsters on the street gathered and returned home. All entertainment venues had to be closed as soon as the sun set. Most of the monsters responsible for public security were assigned to the place where the tooth slave had committed crimes before, except for this time when Huo Qing went alone to a forest. Huo Qing did not let the waiter follow him, and the nearest monster was also quite far away from him. This time, Huo Qing decided to use himself as bait to lure out the tooth slave. Probably when he reached the deepest part of the forest, Huo Qing sat cross-legged on the ground, with a piece of grass hanging from his mouth and his eyes closed to rest. A burning smell awakened Huo Qing, and he suddenly stood up. The raging fire around him had already surrounded him. The guy stood on a burning tree, with a huge hatred in his eyes tightly tied to Huo Qing. I thought you didn't dare come. Huo Qing drew his sword and pointed it at that guy. Don't like to talk. I don't like it either. After saying that, Huo Qing jumped up and rushed towards that guy. A burst of flames hit and forced Huo Qing back to the ground. That guy fell to the ground, his hands bent down, and the flames around him were like dancing venomous snakes. In the blink of an eye, these fire snakes rushed towards Huo Qing from all directions. Although Huo Qing moved around and dodged left and right, he was still hit by a fiery snake. Get up. Water quickly enveloped Huo Qing from the tip of the sword, resisting this blow. If he was hit, he would probably become an old acquaintance. That guy didn't give up when he saw the situation. He started, and the flames converged in his hand. He took a deep breath and the flames entered his mouth again. He raised his long sword and quickly sprayed it, like a thirsty beast, devouring these flames. The entire sword emitted an orange light. Do you think there's no more water here, so you can beat me? Huo Qing clapped his hands. You underestimate me too much. Huo Qing lowered his hands to the ground and said, Get up. Several water jets suddenly spewed out from below. As long as you're anywhere in the demon hall, water is everywhere. Chapter 3. Teeth Slave, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huo Qing was driven several meters away by that guy, supporting the fallen tree in the scorching fire and gently spitting out a mouthful of blood. Can't we really beat it? Huo Qing said to himself. That guy caught a few burning tree roots, and Huo Qing saw this. He inserted his sword into the ground, clenched his fist, and smashed it heavily towards the hilt. Several water columns wide of his arms wrapped around Huo Qing, like a cage. Scatter. The water column grew more and more until it completely enveloped Huo Qing and kept spinning, blocking these rotten tree roots. Huo Qing rushed towards that guy, who wanted to breathe fire again, but this time Huo Qing hit his cheek with a sword hilt and punched him heavily from the chin. The guy then sprayed a string of fiery snakes into the night sky, and the two kicked each other to distance themselves. "Alright, you should pay for it." Huo Qing thrust his sword into the ground again, muttering words. The first move of the Dragon's Song sword technique, Dragon controls the 9 provinces. 9 water pillars rushed out from the ground and ran towards that guy in all directions. No matter how they flickered and moved, they couldn't escape the pursuit of these 9 water pillars. As the water pillar approached, the guy pushed down several trees in an attempt to block them. The power of the water column was immense, breaking through these few trees, wrapping that guy up into a transparent bun, and that guy was the meat filling inside the bun. "I am Huo Qing, the lord of the Nanyu Demon Hall. You killed demons under my hall and violated the rules set by my brother. The heavenly Empress is above, and your grace is majestic. I use the Dragon Song sword bestowed by the heavenly Empress to kill you here." Huo Qing thrust his sword at that guy. The water prison that originally controlled that guy suddenly boiled, and his body was becoming brighter and brighter. Bomb! With the sound of an explosion, Huo Qing was blown several meters away, and the fire around the water prison was also much smaller. Even if he breaks the water prison, it will cause him to lose most of his demonic power, and the fire will weaken. When the flames are completely extinguished, the other small demons rushing towards the demon hall will catch him. "Are you stunned?" Huo Qing stabbed the guy's arm, but he was also kicked away. Oh. Huo Qing was powerless to fight anymore, and more little demons were gradually shrinking their encirclement net. That guy turned into a fox and swept up a layer of soil with his tail. Damn it! When Huo Qing saw it clearly, only a patch of ashes and the little demons who helped him leave the scene remained. As soon as dawn broke, the streets continued to bustle with activity, as if nothing had happened from last night. Passing by the devastated forest, the eyes of these monsters were still focused on their hands and pockets. Due to the destruction caused by that guy last night, many monsters that had not yet been humanoid could only huddle together and hide under the shade of some trees that were safe from fire. These small figures were gradually overshadowed by the sounds and shadows of humanoid monsters coming and going, and the communication generated by their already weak voices was washed away and ebbed by the voices of those monsters, returning to the forest. "Grandpa, why didn't Grandpa catch him last night?" the Yao asked at a big tree. "Yaoguang is also a demon, and there are many things that Yaoguang cannot do. It's like if we had left here and gone outside, we might have been eaten by other monsters long ago," said the tree, connecting the leaf demon through its roots. "What should we do, Grandpa?" The roots of the big tree broke through the soil and formed a cover, covering the small monsters that had not yet formed and still maintained their original form. These little monsters attached themselves again, sucking on the demon power of the tree bit by bit. This is not a long-term solution. For these plant monsters, obtaining demon power and cultivation is much more difficult than those carnivorous monsters. Huo Qing had been staring at the restaurant with bandages all morning. All the dentists within the range of the demon hall had carefully examined the fox demons that could be found. Except for a few suspicious fox demons whose teeth had fallen off due to foraging and fighting outside the demon hall, nothing else was found. "I haven't heard that the demons in the demon house or around have a habit of collecting teeth," Huo Qing said to the group of dentists. "Indeed not, Grand Duke. These demons who need to have their teeth filled don't necessarily require strict requirements, as long as they can ensure that the owner's demonic power is similar to their own." Seeing all these dentists saying that, Huo Qing couldn't continue to say anything. He sat on the second floor and looked at the burnt forest, which was completely unrecognizable. Next to the forest was a bustling market, but there wouldn't be any monsters to help those displaced little monsters. "No way, they are vegetable demons," said the waiter, handing him a bean paste cake. "I'm not worried about them." "What is that, the waiter asked. Huo Qing looked at the arrogant demons walking on the road and said, I'm not worried about the Yanu. I'm just worried that many people with ulterior motives will use the Yanu's banner to do things like Yanu when we can't see them. After saying that, Huo Qing took out a list drawn on parchment from his arms. Their meat-eating problem can't be changed. At the beginning, my father took these vegetable demons to give them some land to live in. After that, Huo Qing focused on a vendor selling bean paste cake. The vendor reached into the bamboo basket and took out a box of mung bean cakes. As the package opened, a green bead was also stuffed into the mung bean cake and handed out. I'm not afraid of tooth slaves, what I'm afraid of is some people who are not tooth slaves and do more terrifying things than tooth slaves, Huo Qing said disappointedly. Alright, how many homicides happened last night? Huo Qing asked. 6 scenes, the teeth were pulled out, and the demon pill was also pulled out. Have we all caught the culprits? Huo Qing asked. Captured all and locked them down. Cut them all down, hang their bodies, and throw them on the street. Grand Duke, think twice, this may be too. Huo Qing stuttered down a piece of bean paste cake. I was never afraid of foreign aggression, but of internal worries. What I was more afraid of was that someone would make internal worries bigger. Huo Qing. An old man stroked a cat in his arms and walked over. Grandpa what's bothering you so much? Huo Qing pulled open a stool. My father law, if you want something to eat, I'll have the chef make it for you right away. Grandpa sat down, and the cat tongs spiritually jumped under the table. The waiter took the opportunity to put a cat mat over. I'm here to tell you something, please listen carefully. Grandpa turned his head and looked around. With a gentle lift of his hand and a gust of wind, he blew the waiter out, and all the curtains around him were also knocked down. The dental slave has already arrived at your place, right? Well, I was powerless to catch him. So, have you found out what his identity is? Huo Qing shook his head. This thing will have the answer you want, keep it. Grandpa took out a memorial and handed it to Huo Qing. This shouldn't be given to heaven. Duke extended his index finger and placed it in front of his mouth, don't say too much. After reading it, burn it immediately. Why is Grandpa so concerned about this matter? Huo Qing asked. This memorial was submitted by Xian Chonggang to the Empress Dowager, but it was intercepted halfway through. Some of the content inside had already been processed, but some demons refused and secretly submitted it. Grandpa patted Huo Qing's shoulder. The sacrificial wine told me that you can trust this matter, but he still asked me to convey a message to you. Grandpa took out 2 walnuts and vigorously crushed them with both hands, placing them on the table and saying, don't be too soft-hearted. You are too kind. But Gonggang Xian Chonggang is a national treasure, will this matter be linked? You don't have to worry about this. The area you can't solve is already well prepared for the sacrificial wine. Just arrest the tooth slave and bring him to justice. Whether you live or die, I'll remind you. My father law stood up and waved his hands, everything returned to its original state. Some things rotted in his stomach when he found out. After speaking, Grandpa left the restaurant holding the cat. Huo Qing looked at the memorial in his hand and felt uneasy after hearing Grandpa's words. Chapter 4. Teeth Slave, 4. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xuanzhong steel comes from the kingdom of 10,000 demons, and the casting of this type of steel requires a type of iron. Xuanzhong iron is extremely rare in the territory of the kingdom of 10,000 demons, and all discovered Xuanzhong iron will be uniformly mined by the government of the kingdom of 10,000 demons. No private organization is allowed to engage in the mining of Xuanzhong iron. Xuanzhong iron is made into Xuanzhong steel, which then becomes the material for casting weapons. The swords, axes, knives, and forks produced by Xuanzhong iron are invincible, and this type of resource has always been listed as a strategic resource. The forging of Xuanzhong steel requires monsters familiar with fire-related magic to continuously melt and solidify Xuanzhong iron through the catalysis of demon fire, and add an extract from the body of the shark to create Xuanzhong steel. According to the known demon record of the 10,000 Demon Kingdom, the Fox Demon Clan is currently the most familiar with fire-related magic within the territory of the 10,000 Demon Kingdom. "How many fox demons are there this year?" said Duke He. "There is no clear calculation for the small ones, but according to the already recorded statistics, 1247 fox demons were accepted into the Xuanzhong Steel Department this year." Duke He furrowed his brow slightly. The number had been decreasing compared to last year, but in recent years, he demanded that the entire army be prepared for war and vigorously expand its output. The production requirements for Xuanzhong iron and steel had tripled in the past 5 years. Now, he not only needs to search for Xuanzhong iron mine everywhere, but also needs to search for monsters who are good at using fire, which has left Duke He extremely anxious. In this way, send this out and do it all according to wartime standards. Duke He issued a decree. "Sir, this may cause dissatisfaction among the Fox tribe. Is the Fox clan dissatisfied?" Duke He looked coldly at the demon in front of him, pointing to the instructions and saying, "If we don't follow the instructions, delaying the construction period won't produce Xuanzhong steel, which will affect the demand for weapon forging in the entire army's preparation. Look at the Heavenly Emperor, don't worry about your Fox clan's dissatisfaction." As he spoke, he pulled open a piece of cloth on the wall, and behind it was a map. Across the sea from Huanyao country, there was also a Japanese country. The spy of Duke He had intercepted a report from the Japanese country, stating that there would be a large scale attack against Huanyao country in the next 5 years. As a result, he had been expanding the number of weapons in the national treasury and extending their service life in recent years. The edict was issued to the Xuanzhong Iron and Steel Department. All of Xuanzhong Iron and Steel's smelting plants were opened, with 5 production lines, usually only 3, and all the frontline Fox demons responsible for Xuanzhong Iron and Steel's smelting were put into 3 shifts. Minor injuries were not allowed to enter the firing line, and as long as there was still 1 demon in the steelmaking plant, the fire could not be extinguished. "Hey! What's going on over there?" A few soldiers walked towards a group of Fox demons who were using their demonic power for steelmaking. "Master Bing! Bing!" A Fox demon closed her eyes and fell down. Her demon power was not well controlled and she hit the sisters on the other side. "Hurry up and have someone control her." The soldiers couldn't help but watch as the fallen Fox demon kept delivering its power to another unlucky Fox demon. "Yaodan! Break the Yaodan on her body." The soldier didn't hesitate much and cut off the head of the Fox demon with just 1 strike, but the demonic power continued to flow. The soldier became anxious and stomped on his head, but it was too late. "Ah ah 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 ah. I can't control it anymore." The huge explosion left only fragments of eaves and tiles in this place, and the scorching smell of being burned by flames could be smelled from dozens of miles away. The closest place to the explosion was a large pit, with nothing left except for an excessively forged piece of Xuanzhong steel. The Fox demons affected by the explosion screamed incessantly in their ears. "Quickly! Quickly! Quickly report this matter." Several soldiers were still transporting the wounded to an open area. This explosion resulted in the death or serious injury of hundreds of Fox demons, and the memorial related to this matter was also reported to Tian Na. "Pig brain. How did you look at them? Even in special moments, you can't act like this." Tian threw a note at Duke He's face and cursed at him. How many Fox demons can come to work in the Xuanzhong Iron and Steel Department in a year, and how much Xuanzhong iron and steel can be produced in a steel mill in a year? Now this kind of critical moment has exploded. Why don't you also explode yourself inside? Tian threw her trigger finger at Duke He, hitting his forehead, and blood kept flowing from his head. "If the Empress Dowager feels that this can calm her anger, I will spare no effort." Duke He knelt on the ground and dared not look directly at the Empress Dowager. Heavenly Empress, calm down. A person wearing a blue robe slowly stood up beside him. His face was pale, and his blue pupils shone like jewels from the western regions, not proportional to his lifeless face. He reached out his thin hand and said, Heavenly Empress, Lord He is also eager to fulfill the order given by Heavenly Empress as soon as possible. This is what loyal officials do. Please do not blame Heavenly Empress too much. So what do you mean is that I don't distinguish between loyalty and treachery? White-faced Marquis, the Queen asked. I dare not. I dare not. Bai Mianho quickly knelt down. The anger of the Empress Dowager lies in her matter. This matter is wrong. The on-site prevention work of the steelmaking department was not done well, and Duke He only changed the working hours. It is true that Duke He is not to be blamed for this, but... But what? Tian sat on a chair, one hand supporting her head and looking at Bai Mianho. However, as the person in charge of the Xuanzhong Steel Department, Duke He should gradually enter a state of war in the steelmaking area through gradual development, rather than achieving it overnight. This matter has indeed not been done properly. So in your opinion, the Queen asked. In my opinion, Duke He should first spend his own money to pay for the damaged steelmaking plant, and at the same time be responsible for collecting the list of victims, distributing money to each victim and injured person, to ensure their normal food and accommodation, and to make them believe that the court believes that even after the day, they will still benefit from all kinds of demons. Heching, what else do you have to say? I deserve to die for all my sins, and I hope to hear the Queen's punishment. Let's follow the words of the white-faced Marquis and retreat. After speaking, everyone left one after another. When the white-faced Marquis left, Tian glanced at him. The white-faced Marquis followed the officials and left the main hall, arriving alone at the He mansion. Thank you very much for offering the sacrificial wine, said Duke He, rapping his forehead. It's okay, isn't it? The court is full of dark waves, and I'm just helping Lord He. Duke He took out another memorial and handed it to the white-faced Marquis, as it was only now that Tianho had decided to raise compensation, the livelihoods of many fox demons had been affected. I have already ordered someone to stop this memorial, and soon the leader of the fox demon will go to court to find Tianho tomorrow, he said. How many people know about the fox tribe leader's entry into the capital? Asked the white-faced Marquis. Not many people know. I have already called for someone to block this information, and even after the day, I don't know. Take care of him. Bai Mianho whispered as he approached Duke He. Are you serious about Bai Mianho's words? If the leader of the Fox clan finds Tian in the capital and speaks a few more words, you will eventually lose your head. Take advantage of him not coming yet, and immediately arrange for someone to take care of him outside. Then you can find a confidant to become the leader of the Fox clan. The white-faced Marquis said, what is it that makes the leaders of the Fox clan come to find Tian? The explosion injured a female fox, and her cubs went crazy all over the world to kill demons and specifically take other demon teeth. It is said that this was because the female fox's demon pill was in the jawbone, but when the explosion occurred, the demon pill was shattered. He was eager to save his mother, and I don't know where he read some magic books, so he twisted his mind and killed them before taking away his teeth. I'm worried that the leader of the Fox tribe will use this matter to blackmail you when he enters the capital. It doesn't matter how much money you have, but if the Queen is unhappy and takes off your black hat, that would be great. That white-faced Marquis. As the white-faced Ho raised his index finger, a thin stream of water was drawn out of the teacup. He wrote a few words on the memorial and said, you give the memorial to my brother Huaqin, and let him investigate this matter of killing demons everywhere. Since he killed demons and likes to pull out their teeth, we will call him the Tooth Slave. I won't be able to act as the leader of the Fox tribe, so I'll leave it to you. I understand, thank you, Bai Mianho. I'll trouble you over there from that day on. He said, taking out a bag and handing it to Bai Mianho. Huo Qin waved his hand and the water flowing from the memorial flew into his foot-soaking basin. His brother was the white-faced marquis in the court and also a military officer offering wine. Like him, his brother was good at controlling water, but his cultivation was higher, and he could even melt a period of memory into the water to tell his younger brother. "Brother, you're too ruthless." Huo Qin hummed a tune while soaking his feet, knowing what to do next. Chapter 5. Teeth Slave, v. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cold. So cold. In the empty room, a figure curled up in the blanket. It's so cold. Okay. Okay. The chill continued to emanate from the blanket, and the candles that originally provided light for the room flickered for a while before all went out. The whole room had become a huge ice storage. "Mom, I'm back." A young man walked in holding a bag and put down his things. He quickly lifted the blanket. "Cold. Mom." "Good." The words were not finished but fell silent. The young man took out a red bead from the bag and stuffed it into his mother's mouth. Her body temperature gradually warmed up and she said, "Mom, open your mouth. The demon pill in the gums has already shown obvious cracks. If we don't find a way to repair it, the broken demon pill is highly likely to die. Even if it doesn't die and all cultivation is lost, it will return to the original fox, which young people never want to see." The young man took out a book from his arms, with "The Little Demon Says" prominently written on the cover. The book was not thick, and it seemed to have been damaged. The few pages in the book were illustrations and a few words. Looking at the small font and illustrations, the person who copied this book should be a well-educated young lady. The demon fox needs to use 81 teeth to add shark powder to refine its teeth, which can become a symptom of repairing the broken mouth demon pill. The medicine is called Gaia Dan. He murmured to himself, covering his mother with a new blanket, and waiting for her to fall asleep. After confirming that his mother was completely asleep, he slowly bent down and pulled out a wicker box under the bed. Inside was a small copper cauldron, as well as a bottle of pure white powder in a glass bottle. The bottle was also covered with a piece of paper, shark powder. He opened the bag and took out a series of teeth from inside, which had been collected in recent days. There's help right away." He tiptoed and closed the doors and windows, injecting some demonic power into the copper cauldron. The cauldron reacted and slowly turned red. He gently spat out a small demonic fire from his mouth into the cauldron, and all 81 shark powder and teeth were also thrown in. He couldn't be disturbed for a while. "Oh, Yaoguang Gong, what's going on in my little fox village?" Huo Qin walked into the ancestral hall, where an old man with white hair stood, hunched over and leaning on a crutch. "I'll stop by here and come take a look." "Why don't you come and tell me, why don't you stay and have a meal tonight?" Huo Qin walked up to the spirit card and looked at it. "Okay, I heard that there was an explosion at a steelmaking plant recently. Has your village not been affected?" "I haven't heard of that. The fox demon from our village hasn't returned for a long time." "Is that right?" Huo Qin picked up a spirit card and threw it to the ground. "Grand Duke, what do you mean?" The old man picked up the spirit card and pointed it at Huo Qin with his cane, cursing angrily. "The deceased is so great, how could you, as the Grand Duke of the Demon Hall, do such an impolite thing?" Huo Qin pinched his finger and said, "This spirit tablet has just been released, and some of the paint hasn't dried up. That means someone's soul has just returned to their hometown and been buried near the village. I'll ask you again if a steel-making plant has exploded recently and if your village has been affected." More and more fox demons surrounded the temple, staring angrily at Huo Qin. Some held sickles and hoes, but their eyes were afraid of the dragon-chanting sword hanging on Huo Qin's waist. Indeed, several families were buried because of this, but our clan leader has already reported this to Tian in the capital. "I don't need to tell you about this. Huo Qing picked up 2 spirit cards and said, "How long has it been since your clan leader returned?" "About 6 days. Your clan leader's body and a large sum of money will come back soon," said Huo Qing. You. Did you unite with the dog official to kill the clan leader?" The old man was furious and used his cane to hit Huo Qing. Huo Qing dodged this and held on to the old man who had been knocked out with his backhand. "Your clan leader's situation is really not in line with mine. I just want to know if there is a mother and son who returned to the village due to the explosion at the steel plant." The old man couldn't keep it hidden and said, "Grand Duke, we just don't want other demon tribes around us to know about us. Recently, these weak and sick demons have returned to the village, otherwise it will only increase the trouble. Do you know that the demons in your village have come to my territory to kill them?" Huo Qing asked. "I really don't know, I only know that the mother and son returned because the mother fox was injured in the explosion and has been recuperating since then. Have you heard about the dental slave?" The old man shook his head and said, "I don't know about this, it's just recent rumors, and this matter has nothing to do with our village." Huo Qing took out a few fox hairs from his hand and said, "I came here following his taste." The old man took those few fox hairs, pinched them, and then brought them to his nose. Before the old man could say more, an explosion made Huo Qing feel a bit unstable. "Not good," said the old man, looking at the thick smoke billowing, "it's their family." Huo Qing leaned on the ground with one hand as if he wanted to pump out the groundwater again, but this time he frowned and said to himself, "Grass. There is no hidden river under your village, and I can't exert myself. Old man, please stand far away." After speaking, Huo Qing sat cross-legged on the ground, clenching his right hand and hitting the ground, "Get up." A stone snake emerged from under Huo Qing's body, carrying him towards the smoking place. There were still several tens of meters away from that place, and the stone snake suddenly became uncontrollable. The stones scattered one after another, and Huo Qing could no longer control the stone snake. With one thrust of his legs, he jumped up from the snake's head, losing Huo Qing's control. The stone snake gradually split apart, and countless stones fell to the ground. Huo Qing himself hung on a tree. Fortunately, the fox demons around didn't come close, Huo Qing thought to himself as he flipped down the tree and patted his sleeve. A mud house was blasted open from the middle, and behind the broken walls, a man held an old woman, but her face had turned lifeless and pale. "It's your fault. The sobbing man burst out with an extraordinary demonic force. "Your mother is hopeless, stop it." Huo Qing drew out his dragon song sword. "If it weren't for your request to work overtime, how could our mother and son have ended up today? Since I can't let that dog official pay for it, I will ask you to pay for it and use your life to pay my mother's respects." The fox demon punched through the old woman's chin in his arms and forcefully took out a red pearl, swallowing it in one gulp. "I'm sorry. I'll take the lives of these dog officials for you." The fox demon was surrounded by a burst of orange fire, but after a while, it turned into a clear blue flame. "Fox fire. Sorry, there's no water underground to guide me." Huo Qing thought to look back at the fox demons that had already surrounded him. "No, if this guy loses control of his demon power, all the fox demons here will suffer. I can't handle so much. Fight." Huo Qing closed his eyes slightly, put away his dragon song sword, and took a deep breath. Countless blocks of soil and stones wrapped him up, creating an area that isolated the fox demon outside and could not harm other demons. Huo Qing attached a layer of soil to himself and stared at the fox demon, saying, "I'll fight with you enough this time." The fox demon let out a roar, and 4 pure white tails spread out from behind him. Seeing these 4 demon foxes, Huo Qing swallowed his saliva. Chapter 6. Teeth Slave, 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The demon fox slapped fiercely, but Huo Qing couldn't dodge. He was suddenly knocked out of the cage made of stone and soil. He lay on the ground, coughing up blood, and his four tails extended their tongues to lick his lips before slowly walking towards Huaqing. "You're a demon lord, but you only know prison techniques." The fox demon grabbed Huaqing's neck and raised its hand to pierce his left chest. Just now, Huaqing was suppressing and beating this fox demon. Huaqing kicked forward with both feet, hitting the four tails in a beating. However, the four-tailed fox demon was different from ordinary fox demons, and even close-range Huaqing only had a slight advantage. In the blink of an eye, the fox demon used its four tails to sweep forward, and Huaqing immediately got up and jumped to the top of the dungeon to avoid it. "You come down." Several blue flames ignited at the end of the four tails and flew quickly towards Huaqing. Huaqing returned to the ground, inserted his hands into the ground, picked up a large piece of soil, and threw it away. However, the fox fire was like several steel guns piercing through the soil and continuing to charge towards Huaqing. The speed was too fast to continue picking up another piece of soil, so he had to pick up the dragon song sword to block it. Unexpectedly, the dragon song sword was also thrown away by the fox fire. Taking advantage of this gap, the fox demon rushed forward and scratched Huaqing's left shoulder to the bottom right with its claws. Huaqing, who was still in a daze, forcefully took this bite. With a punch, Huaqing distanced himself from the fox demon. He immediately picked up the dragon song sword and pointed it at the fox demon. He murmured, "The second move of the dragon song sword." Before he could finish speaking, he was knocked out of the dungeon by the fox demon and now his life is on the line. "Alright, dog official, go see my mother." The fox demon didn't intend to stab Huaqing with his hand. His four tails quickly rushed towards Huaqing's chest, trying to prick him to the core. A water column drove the fox demon away, rolling several times. The fox demon stood up and saw a person condensed from water standing in front of Huaqing. He lifted the dragon song sword in his hand and flew into his hand. Before the fox demon could react, it was hit by another water column and flew away. Every time it hit him, the water column condensed back onto the person. "Huaqing, Huaqing, Huaqing." The figure called out. "Brother! Brother!" Huaqing lay on the ground and looked at the water figure, unable to get up on his own. "Huaqing, why has it been so long? You still need to use your hands to lure. Have you forgotten the second move of the dragon song sword?" he said. "I dare not use it, I am afraid." "Afraid?" The waterman blocked the fox claws that were attacking him with one hand, twisted his backhand and then punched the fox demon back, most of which made the fox demon feel intimidated. "Are you satisfied with Xuanwu Diamond Fist?" said the waterman. "It's ridiculous, Wang Baquan is just Wang Baquan. You dog officials all like to be so righteous." A few fox fires ignited at the end of the fox demon. The waterman's face showed two pupils, one blue and one green, staring at the fox demon and saying, "Huaqing, you keep an eye on it. I'll do it for you again." The fox fire flew in, and all the water people dodged, while the fox demon controlled the fox fire to chase closely. The waterman suddenly jumped up and lifted his palm towards the back of the fox demon in mid-air. A earthen wall stood up and smashed heavily from behind the fox demon, gradually extinguishing the fox fire. Taking advantage of the gap between the fox's rise, the waterman lifted a gust of wind in his right hand and gathered it in his hand. His left hand circled the tree on the other side, and as soon as he mixed his hands with the wind and leaves, he said, "Come and try this." Countless leaves stabbed at the fox demon like flying knives, exhausted from defense, only to see the waterman rushing towards him faster and faster. Fighting. The fox demon gave up its defense and rushed towards the waterman, facing the attack from the leaves. The Longyin sword is not a long sword, and I have already mastered the attack distance. As long as I dodge the farthest swing distance from him, I have a chance. The fox demon lifted its fox claws, but a wave of blood mist had already been pumped out of his forehead, blocking his vision. The second move of Dragon's Singing Sword, the dragon crosses the 4 seas. The waterman suddenly drew his sword and cut off one of the fox demon's tails, which was even farther than the fox demon had expected. Huo Qing looked at the waterman in surprise. He didn't hold the dragon song sword in his hand, as if it was being carried by something. Huo Qing, remember to use the demon power as an extension of your body. Teaching you how to use the dragon song sword is not for your body, but for your whole body, he said. What's the difference? Huo Qing stood up and walked over. You can think of it yourself. Alright, I should go now. This water won't last long. Hey! Brother! The waterman completely turned into a puddle of water, picking up the dragon song sword and facing the fox demon with a missing tail. The fox demon had no intention of giving Huo Qing any more rest time. Although he had lost one tail, the fox demon was still fierce. However, the previous sword had already exposed the position of his demon pill. As long as the dragon song sword injured the enemy, the injured person's demon pill would be perceived by the sword holder. With the one from the waterman in front, Huo Qing already knew that the fox demon pill was on his neck. You! The fox demon was already insane, and he turned all his demon power into fox fire and threw it. Huo Qing closed his eyes slightly, concentrating and holding his breath. The fox demon watched as the fox fire smashed towards Huo Qing. After a thick smoke, a figure walked out of it and slowly walked towards the fox demon. The fox demon rushed forward again like it had gone crazy. Due to being cut off from its tail, its demonic power continued to be released from the cut. He concentrated the remaining demonic power on the fox claw, attempting to directly defeat Huo Qing. What? Holding on to the bleeding wound, Huo Qing lifted his dragon song sword and pushed back the fox demon with a forceful thrust. But at this moment, Huo Qing did not continue to pursue and instead inserted his sword back into its sheath. The fox demon took the opportunity to adjust its body shape and swept over again. You want to die? The sound of cutting watermelons came from the neck of the fox demon, and his head and the demon pill fell to the ground. In an instant, the demon pill split in half from the middle. Huo Qing withdrew his sword and said, the second move of the dragon singing sword technique, the dragon crosses the 4 seas. Huo Qing spat out blood on the ground. It seems that I, faster than you. About a few days later, the leader of the Fox clan returned to the village and brought back 3 boxes of gold, all of which were monetized and distributed to the injured fox demons according to the degree of injury. At the same time, because the Fox Demon village was close to the South Fish Demon Hall, the village leader personally took people underground and connected them to the underground river of the South Fish Demon Hall. From then on, this area will be protected by the South Fish Demon Hall, and the tribe will not be threatened by other monsters outside. Everyone can rest assured and recuperate. Huo Qing, wrapped in gauze, leaned on a wooden crutch and arrived at a coffin shop. Oh, Grandpa, here you are. These are the 2 coffins you requested. Huo Qing Shun took out 2 pairs of fox fur, one wrapped in black rope and the other wrapped in red rope. Put the black one in the small coffin, and the red one in the big one, he said. De Gong, where are these 2 buried? Huo Qing touched his head and said, bury it in the forest where it caught fire last time, don't bury it too far. Hey, I'll do it tomorrow. The tea house was still bustling with noise as a carriage stopped and a few people got off with 3 large boxes. They didn't say hello, just left the boxes at the door, posted a note, and left. The note reads: Huo Qingshu, who made outstanding contributions to the case of the Tooth Slave. Chapter 2. Brilliant Past, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the conclusion of the Yanu case, the collected fragments of Little Demon says were sent to the hands of the sacrificial wine. After a simple check, he confirmed that it was handwritten by his master, Xiaoyao. This fragment even revealed a faint fragrance of flowers. He threw the fragment onto a nearby candle and watched it burn to ashes with his own eyes. Are you really good at doing this? Xiaoyao said. What the queen needs to do is destroy the rest of little monster says, and she won't ask about it. What I mean is, don't you really tell her the true content of this book? Xiaoyao stood up and transformed into a young girl. She walked to the altar, dipped her hand in tea, and wrote on the table, tracing back to the original. Nonsense. The existence of this book will shake the foundation of the country. Don't tell me if there are any of these things. The sacrificial wine overturned the tea. It's up to you, the final say. You are offering sacrifices. Where should Huo Qin go next? Standing in front of the map of the demon kingdom, the sacrificial wine remained silent as he gazed at a black area. What you did back then, ask your brother to wipe his butt, isn't that good? Xiaoyao jumped onto the bed of the sacrificial wine with a bunch of grapes. The sacrificial wine shook its head and said, let him handle it. I really don't want to go see you. I estimate that the fragment of what the little demon said is there. Oh, are you so sure? Xiaoyao rolled up holding the pillow on the altar bed. That place did indeed become what it is now because of the creation of that thing. The sacrificial wine picked up a piece of craft paper and wrote with a pen. Knives, guns, sticks, axes, hooks, and forks. They're on sale today. The weapon vendor waved a silver spear. This is a recently built long road, and there are often vendors coming here to buy some items. The scorching sun is shining, and many monsters have retreated and turned into cats and dogs lying under the trees to enjoy the shade. Some would rather turn into frogs and jump into the pool. Countless frog monsters crowded the already small pond, and chirping birds covered the entire banyan tree. Back then, holding the dragon-chanting sword bestowed upon him by the late emperor during the sacrificial ceremony, he passed through this path. Do you know where he was going? A monster with a chicken head sat on a bench, drinking yangmei soup while talking to the monster listening to the book with a beaming expression. At that time, the sacrificial ceremony was full of energy, dressed in mink skin and wearing a purple golden crown, with a tiger skin bow on his back. A top-notch swordsman from Japan came to compete with the sacrificial ceremony, his name. After speaking, Xingmu patted the table. This person's name, Ito Runzaburo, is the first skilled swordsman in the dwarf kingdom over there. It's strange to say that the people there call those curved Japanese swords. These dwarves really love to confuse right and wrong, but this Saburo should not be underestimated. He pulled out 2 chopsticks from the chopstick barrel on the table. This Sanlang is a person who uses double swords, long on the left and short on the right. It is said that his left side has tremendous strength with his sword, and with one strike, he can split open rocks as big as trees. He then pointed to the banyan tree surrounded by 5 monsters to save it. He used a knife on his right side, which was extremely sharp. Even if the silk from the western regions fell on the blade, it didn't need to be blown and would break at a touch. He then pulled out another chopstick. On the day of the showdown, Jijio wielded the dragon song sword and fought to the death with Ito Runzaburo on the rooftop of the Yaoguang city tower. This was another eye-catching tap on the table. At that time, the place where the 2 of them fought in Vietnam was Yaoguang City, but now this place no longer appears on the road signs. Do you know why? The chicken demon picked up 3 chopsticks and shook them in front of the listening monster. The chopsticks kept shaking as if they had become a curtain, and the electric light and flint in their duel were living on this curtain. Because the sacrificial ceremony used a move called dragon singing in the sea and a sword to seal the throat, they defeated the double-blade swordsman. However, the demonic power released during the battle between the 2 of them destroyed the Yaoguang city in an instant. Now there is no Yaoguang city anymore, and that place has been changed to Not Bright City. The chicken demon was furious and flipped over the table. He picked up a wake-up log and threw it at the place where he was speaking, smashed the floor. A cold light flashed, and Xingmu was split in half. The young man in black, who was originally sitting, took out 2 pieces of broken gold and threw them to the chicken demon. You said it well, do you know where the city is now? Who are you? The chicken demon did not possess and picked up the broken gold, but walked angrily. The young man in black stood up and took off his veil. He took out a double-fish jade pendant with a waist and said, Nanyu Yaoguang Guan Gong, Huo Qing, is the younger brother of today's sacrificial wine. Alright, posing as the younger brother of sacrificial wine to smash the scene here, right? Who sent you here? The chicken demon drew a whip sword from his waist and threw it at Huo Qing. This sword seems to have pierced Huo Qing, not so angry. Huo Qing blocked the whip sword with his sword sheath, and with a gentle flick, the black cloth wrapped around the sheath dispersed. Dragon chanting sword. The dragon chanting sword gifted by the queen. The chicken demon suddenly wilted, and monsters surrounded him. Some even picked up the broken gold that had been thrown on the ground. Hey! Black-handed, isn't it? This belongs to me. The chicken demon rolled up his sleeves and engaged in a fight with a few dog-headed and human-bodied monsters. Huo Qing took advantage of the chaos and left here. The carriages, ox carts, and donkey carts that came and went were scattered. Fortunately, Huo Qing stopped a passing ox cart. The elderly snake demon led an old cow, wearing a raincoat and a straw hat. The snake demon occasionally rubbed off the snake skin that had peeled off from its hands. After walking for a while, the old cow stopped moving. The snake demon whipped its whip and threw it towards the scarred back of the cow. Are you going to Buyang City? Huo Qing said. No, there are no monsters in the city of Buyang right now. It is said that there is a very terrifying monster holding 2 curved knives, and any living creature that comes will die under the knife. The snake demon then handed over a wine jug. Is there such a thing? Huo Qing took a sip and returned it. This is not the most evil. There are also some monsters who say that this is the transformation of the soul that died under the sacrificial wine sword in the past. Ordinary weapons cannot even harm it. This soul has been waiting for the sacrificial wine to return before fighting him again, otherwise it will not dissipate. It is very evil. After saying that, the snake demon rubbed off several layers of skin. Did the ritual wine really use a move called, Dragon Singing in the Sea, to defeat that Japanese swordsman back then, said Huo Qing. I don't know about this anymore. I wasn't in Buyang City at the time. Don't listen to the surrounding monsters talking nonsense. There's also a reason why Buyang City has turned into this. The snake demon whispered as he spoke. At the beginning, these two were dueling on the rooftop of Yaoguang City, with hundreds of monsters watching from the sidelines. The sacrificial wine and the swordsman were facing each other, and the demonic power shook. I could sense it from hundreds of miles away and this old cow at the time. Later, the snake demon sneered and said, all the monsters below were shattered into powder, and the swordsman was stabbed to death by the sacrificial wine sword. The entire Yaoguang city became a city of no light because of this incident. Chapter 2. The Past of Yaoguang, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The snake demon escorted Huo Qing to the outside of the city of Buyang, and then slowly pulled the old ox away towards the direction of the setting sun. Huo Qing stretched lazily and began walking towards the city gate of Buyang. The trees that should have been planted on both sides of the road all the way disappeared without a trace, leaving only some soil pits of similar size. There were no weeds on the ground, and Huo Qing bent down to grab a handful of soil. The soil was extremely loose and without water, and there was even no hidden river or groundwater 100 feet underground. It was not even possible to take a big breath here, because the air was filled with a rotten and old smell. No, I was walking according to the map, why didn't I see the welcoming road? Huo Qing scratched his head in confusion. Oh, it looks like it's really here, he said, kicking away the sand on the ground. Huo Qing leaned down with both hands and exhaled hard. The sand on the ground was split in half from the middle, retreating left and right. A road that had been buried for countless years appeared once again, which was the welcoming road of the former Yaoguang city. As long as you follow this road, you can smoothly walk to the main entrance. The sky gradually lost its brightness, and there was no other illumination besides moonlight. Huo Qing snapped his finger, and at this moment, the flame that could have been easily ignited was only a spark. He tried many times but couldn't ignite it. Then give this a try. Huo Qing took out a can of shark oil and lightly dipped it with his fingers. A fire the size of a human head jumped out of Huo Qing's fingertips, but before it could last for a while, the flames were instantly extinguished. Huo Qing had no choice but to use his black robe to wipe off the shark oil on his hands. As he wiped his fingers, the Pisces jade pendant on his waist emitted a faint blue light. I don't know. Huo Qing infused his demonic power into the Pisces jade pendant, and the blue light and a lantern illuminated the road beneath his feet. He had unknowingly walked to the city gate, which had already been destroyed. The huge iron gate, along with the door bolt, collapsed under the barren sand here. The dense marks on the wall were carved by some soldiers on duty before. Brother, what exactly did you do? Huo Qing kicked away a protrusion under his feet, which was a common ox cart wheel. Perhaps the vendor was planning to lead the ox out of the city, but somehow his whole body was shattered. Fortunately, his wheel was made of Xian heavy steel and spent a lot of money, otherwise it would end up with him. Entering the city gate, the once bustling market square was now devoid of nothing except for a few oil lamps. The oil inside the lamps had already dried up. The market, which should have been lively, could now be stepped on with just a few steps. Huo Qing didn't want to look down at what it was. Perhaps through the sound of this rupture, he didn't need to guess what these were. Several bright lights rose from 4 places in the southeast, northwest, and northwest, with 4 pillars of light straight into the sky, and the huge demonic power began to diverge. No, the direction of this demonic power. Huo Qing noticed that if it was an uncontrolled demonic power, it should be thrown like tofu from a high place onto the water surface, but it would soon fall into pieces. However, these demonic powers emitted from the light pillar were sucked into the ground, and the degree of emission was gradually increasing and becoming stronger. It's impossible, there's no demon pill nearby. Where are these demon powers going? Huo Qing placed his hands on the ground, trying to sense the direction of these huge demon powers. Not good. The huge demonic power spewed out from the ground with lightning speed, like a surging underground river rushing out of a huge spring, as if it was about to explode Huo Qing's demonic pill. This demonic power stuck him to the ground, unable to move, like a sparrow soaked in water, and could only be slowly devoured by this fierce demonic power. Ah 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 ah. Huo Qing shouted, and the demonic power seemed to have rushed to other places. He saw that the white and brittle underground had been infused with demonic power, and their appearance was gradually returning to their original state. The dragon-chanting sword hanging around his waist made a sound, and he saw it pop out of the scabbard, enveloped by an indigo blue light. The indigo blue light protected Huo Qing, at least he wouldn't be overwhelmed by this surging and uncontrollable demonic force that would destroy the demonic pill. However, the demonic force in his body was like a wild cow colliding everywhere, and the immense pain made it difficult for him to maintain balance. Brother! After a scream, Huo Qing passed out on the ground. A white-haired monster saw this process in the city gate tower, and saw all the thin crisps that were originally buried underground stand up. They seemed to have returned to their former days and walked to the market. Some were waving their hands to attract customers, some seemed to be watering fresh vegetables with a kettle, and even some were thin crisps. They pulled up a ladder from the ground and lit the oil lamp that had run out of oil. What ignited were not red flames, but rather chilling ghostly flames. The white-haired monster jumped down from the city tower, and the person in charge of the tower, Bo Jian, picked up a knife and gun and rushed towards it. The white-haired monster was not in a hurry to confront the enemy, with its body bent and its right hand tightly gripping the handle. Its entire body and handle shook unnaturally, and it took a deep breath. All the demon power in the world seemed to be visible in its eyes. Flash. In just a moment, the thin and brittle ones were cut off from their waist, and the sound of their swords being sheathed echoed through the market. Several ice pillars lifted from behind the white-haired monster, piercing through these thin and brittle ones. A white ferret crawled out of her shoulder, revealing a dull ghostly flame. This monster had a beautiful face and looked as old as Huo. Although it was impossible to infer the age of her demonic pill, from the maintained appearance, it seemed that this guy was extremely concerned about his own appearance. Ashi, this guy seems to have fainted, said Bai Jiao. Ashi placed his hand on Huoqing's forehead, and the scorching demonic force made her quickly lift it back. She took a deep breath and blew hard, causing Huoqing's body to gradually cool down. She sealed Huoqing with a piece of ice and pushed the ice towards the depths of the city. Along the way, there were no other fragile attacks on them, but the demonic power released by the light pillar made her occasionally blow her breath. The closer she was to the light pillar, the higher the temperature around her. Those ghostly flames did not have the warmth of a normal flame, and all that came was a piercing coldness. Pushing Huoqing to a dilapidated building, the ice quickly melted into a puddle of water. This is. Huoqing opened his eyes, his intense headache making him unable to distinguish between left and right. Who are you and why are you here? ACI asked. I, Huoqing, came here under the name of my elder brother to retrieve things. What do you call me, Mississippi? Huoqing said. Mother. Who is mother? ACI stuttered as he spoke. Huoqing glanced at a C and said, Miss, it's not a mother. Miss means young woman. You're not from the demon kingdom, are you? The monsters here usually don't wear these wooden clogs. Have you ever seen my brother? ACI asked. Your brother? We've only met for the first time, how could I possibly have met your brother? Huoqing touched the Longyin sword, but at this moment, the Longyin sword did not react. The monster in front of him, with white hair and a girl wearing high wooden clogs, seemed not to be an enemy. Ashi didn't say much, she took down a pipa-like instrument from behind, but only 3 strings, and started playing it on her own. Chapter 2. The Past of Yaoguang, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The slight headache woke Huoqing up early in the morning, and the sound of the female demon playing last night seemed to linger in his ears. This instrument did not come from the land of 10,000 demons. His brother had once told him that this instrument with only 3 strings resembling a pipa was from the land of Japan. He didn't have time to think about this. He pushed open a tattered wooden door, and everything returned to its original state. Looking up, I saw a white dove slowly landing on its shoulder. Okay, let me take a look. Untie the small bucket tied to the pigeon's leg and say, the strength drops by 100 tricks, and if you break it, you will surely fail. Can't you speak well? Huoqing didn't understand the information about the sacrificial wine and casually threw it away. After using a little dried meat on his body to dismiss the pigeon, he began to go to the place where the pillar of light lit up last night. First, walk to the west, first pass a clinic, and then walk for a little while. It will be a place where monsters live daily. This is the area where the light column rose last night. The surrounding brick houses are even full of the evil force that did not dissipate last night. A withered wudong tree still stands here. According to the reason, the original powerful evil force should raise this place to the ground, but some houses are dilapidated, it doesn't seem to have been greatly affected. Strange. Huoqing put his hand on the thick body of the wudong tree. There was even demon power coming from the tree. The tree was constantly absorbing the demon power around and sending it to an unknown place. Pulling out the dragon song sword, Huoqing inserted it into the tree. This is not a good thing. The crimson warm liquid dripped down from the tip of the dragon singing sword, dipped in a little bit with his hand, and sniffed in front of his nose. Blood. Huoqing was surprised. After shaking off the tree blood from the dragon's singing sword, Huo Qing walked into the place where the monsters used to live. Most of the houses in this area were 1 to 2 floors, with doors facing east. Even some courtyards had a few tattered flower pots, and they didn't look bad living here. What is this? The uneven scratches on the door caught Huo Qing's attention. Some doors left scratches of varying depths and sizes, some even being split in half by something unknown, touching these scratches. It's so new, it doesn't seem like it was destroyed by demonic power, Huo Qing murmured to himself. Zila. Zila. The sound of metal dragging on the ground approached Huo Qing. Brother, what exactly did you do? A huge monster wearing a blood-colored apron, holding an axe and a machete, slowly walked over. His eyes had been pierced blind, and he had 2 horns on his head. Every step he took would make a difficult gasp. Huo Qing felt the presence of the surrounding demon power, but did not notice the demon pill on the monster's body. How do you call me Huo Qing, the Duke of the Lower South Fish Demon Hull? The machete flew over, and Huo Qing possessed himself to avoid it. The monster struck again with an axe. Get out of the way, dodged the axe and slapped the monster in the stomach. Oh, it's inside, right. The monster's body emitted an unusual demonic power, and if it felt right, there was something inside his body that the sacrificial wine requested to be recycled. The monster clumsily kicked Huo Qing away, and he picked up a machete on the ground, searching for Huo Qing's trace. The butcher monster, who was hit by the sword scabbard, panicked. He shook his head wildly and his pair of pig ears searched for all the sounds around him. Here it is. Huo Qing cut off his ankle with one sword, causing the monster to fall heavily to the ground. With 2 more swords, he accurately broke his wrist. Ah 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 ah. The monster let out a mournful cry, wriggling on the ground like a powerless catfish, thinking that it could escape Huo Qing. Stepping on the big meatball on the ground with 1 foot, Huo Qing raised his dragon song sword and stabbed him in the back. A long sword appeared at the spine where the bone should have appeared. This kind of sword is rare in the demon kingdom and should be used by the Japanese people. It seems that it can be ended early. Huo Qing reached out and wanted to take this sword away. At the moment of touching this knife, an electric current like demonic force rushed into Huo Qing's body. He had not yet had time to use his own demonic force to resist the invasion of this external demonic force. He was frozen in place like he had injected lead, still able to feel the wind and grass in the external world. However, now 2 demonic forces were colliding inside him, and in order to maintain the balance of demonic force, he couldn't move. Take back 2 knives, remember, be careful, don't just hang around like before. The words of the sacrificial wine repeatedly popped out of his head, and the sound of the dragon's sword kept ringing in his ears. Huo Qing's brain was blank, and he knelt numbly on the ground before finally falling into this ball of flesh. Huo Qing, Huo Qing, Huo Qing. In the darkness, a familiar voice called out to Huo Qing. I didn't know where he had arrived, but there was no vitality and a dead silence. His body was covered in sticky liquid, and Huo Qing, who was supposed to be filled with demonic power and emit a warm breath, had a sudden drop in body temperature. There seemed to be something around him pulling away the demonic power from his body until it was drained. Where am I? Huo Qing stood up, holding his painful head, with nothing but a white coat on his body, and the dragon song sword was nowhere to be found. A bright white light came, and a humanoid monster sat in front of the chessboard, holding a black piece in hand. The pupils of different colors, 1 blue and 1 blue, were like gemstones. Even if you didn't look at him, the brilliance and color would still attract the attention of the surrounding monsters. He placed the flag on the chessboard. I'm your brother. Everything that was originally dark and nihilistic has become bright white, as if falling into a world built with white Hotan jade, which is pure white. What is incompatible with this world is a human-shaped monster who claims to be Huo Qing's brother and wears black clothes. Sword, come. The dragon whispering sword flew from a distance into his hand. Brother. The monster just looks the same as the sacrificial wine, but Huo Qing feels that he is not his brother at all. Although the sacrificial wine in front of him seems harmless to humans and animals, there seems to be an extremely disturbing factor hovering around him, and his huge demon power is very domineering. This feeling is not his brother at all, nor does it emanate from Xiaoyao Duke. Yes, but not entirely. He hid the dragon song sword in his sleeve, pushed aside the chessboard, and black and white pieces scattered all over the ground. White and black pieces jumped to each side, forming two round balls, one black and one white. He inserted his hands into the black and white balls and drew out two long knives. Did you come to find this thing? The black and white double swords were the things that Huo Qing was ordered to retrieve. This was originally the sword of a Japanese swordsman who had dueled with the sacrificial wine in Yaoguang City, but unexpectedly it was here. What exactly is this place? Huo Qing asked. Monster God Domain, this is the place where the spiritual power of monsters is composed. This guy transformed a bottle of wine out of thin air and drank it loudly in front of Huo Qing. The sadness, joy, sadness, and regret of monsters are all here. It is these things that make up this place that I have always been here, Huo Qing. Why are you here? Waiting for you. A red cloth suddenly rushed out from behind Huo Qing and wrapped around him. The surroundings were originally a bright white world, suddenly filled with colors, sounds, and smells. It's time to tell you something. Chapter 2. The Past of Yaoguang, 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Zhuge family was once the largest family in the kingdom of 10,000 demons, rooted in Yaoguang City. The first head of the Yaoguang City was Zhuge Yao, who established this city to ensure the prosperity of the family. It was named Yaoguang City. The sun and moon will saber has always been the treasure of the Zhuge family, passed down from generation to generation, and only the head of the family knows the use of these swords. You rats! Open the city gate and spare you from dying. Xiaoyu, dressed in black armor, rode a white horse and shouted at the entrance of Yaoguang City. A crowd of 30,000 has surrounded Yaoguang City. The addition of Japanese troops has also been blocked along the coast. You have run out of ammunition and food, and if you don't surrender to the Heavenly Queen, it will be a capital offense. Xiaoyu took out a stack of paper and threw it into the sky, and the pieces of paper scattered into the city with the wind. Think about your wife, children, it only takes 3 days. Several streams of arrows flew from the darkness, and when Xiaoyu reacted, a black shadow appeared from somewhere and bounced the arrows. He Qin Gang, said the demon of shooting arrows on the wall. Zhuge Ao, this kind of shooting cold arrows is quite embarrassing, isn't it? The monster in the black and green robe threw 3 arrows and threw a spear towards the spot where the arrows were fired. The city wall trembled slightly, and a blue-haired monster was seen floating in the air. With a gentle flick of its finger, the spear was wrapped in an indigo color and charged towards He Qin Gang. Let's go. Xiaoyu pushed away and lifted several stone slabs on the ground in an attempt to block the flying spear. The slabs were shattered by several pieces, and Xiaoyu, lying on the side, watched helplessly as the spear approached He Qin Gang. Bang! A bullet hit the spear directly, and the young monster waved its hand lightly. Several small humanoid monsters brought several wooden boards and iron pipes, which were clumsily assembled together. Fran machine gun, said He Qin Gang. Yes, I made a deal with the red-haired ghost. He patted Qin Gang's shoulder and pointed to Zhuge Ao on the wall. Qianlong Pavilion. A whole group of monsters wearing black iron armor and holding firearms appeared in front of everyone. They had never heard of this army before. The guy in charge of commanding this special unit was wearing a deer antler red armor, took off his helmet, and had golden hair, which attracted the monsters to look at them one after another. Protector, is this a mother? Said He Qin Gang. It's a woman, said the blonde witch. Prepare to attack. The protector raised a black flag. By the time this scene disappeared, darkness once again surrounded Huo Qing. "So, is the protector my brother?" Huo Qing said. "Yes, it's me, but it's not important." After the voice finished, a bright white Huo Qing couldn't open his eyes. The sound of tiles falling made Huo Qing involuntarily take a few steps back. When he opened his eyes, the surroundings were ablaze with flames, countless corpses on broken walls and tiles, blood flowing through the streets, crows circling in groups in the air, and the sound of gunfire had stopped. Yaoguang City has been conquered. Do not kill women, children, and unarmed people. The soldiers shouted as they searched for surviving monsters in the ruins. Xiaoyu led the white horse, while the protector sat on the horse. The blonde female demon rode side by side on another red horse, and the two demons chatted happily. The female demon was very satisfied with the damage caused in front of her. The power of the Fran machine cannon was indeed astonishing. After besieging the Yaoguang city for 3 months, such a thick city wall exploded with just a few strokes, said the protector. These are all things that the Frankie people gave to Japan. This batch is relatively old, and it is said that the latest batch has already been delivered to their emperor's hands, said the female demon. Didn't Mr. Fran deliver these to us before? I have sent it, but the crown prince didn't like it, so he locked up the 5 cannons he had sent, thinking that these gunpowder weapons would make the monsters lose their original intention to cultivate. A faint demonic aura emanated from the debris of the tiles, with a scent so faint that it was like a flower just watered by heavy rain. Time was running out, and the soldiers searching felt that it was a worthless and dying monster, so they did not report it. The protector and the blonde witch gradually did not know that they had entered the designed encirclement. Long live the crown prince! A group of death attendants dressed in cloth rushed out from the dilapidated buildings around them, shouting to wrap themselves in explosives and run towards the protector. Even though they were killed by some soldiers halfway, a few still rushed over the wall of people, and in an instant, a violent explosion caused dust to fly, splattering internal organs and severed limbs. Watching all of this, Huo Qing couldn't bear to spit it out. Is that it? A barrier of blue light surrounded 3 monsters, and their blood was absorbed by the barrier. The protector clenched his fist and the blue barrier, which was filled with monster blood, turned into a blue-red intersecting light and returned to his body. He coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. Infernal monsters, they really stink. Upon hearing the explosion, all the soldiers who had been searching rushed towards this side. The protector took a deep breath and felt an unusual demonic power mixed among the soldiers. He was not running away, but was rushing towards the west tower of Yaoguang City. He didn't run fast to cover up the demonic power. You two continue to search. After speaking, the guardian rose into the air, and a large snake made of soil and stones rose from the ground. Stepping on top of the snake's head, it also ran towards the tower. Why are you showing me these? Huo Qing said. Don't worry, it's coming to an end soon. Huo Qing, you should remember to reduce 100 skills with 1 effort. The figure wearing a black robe under the tower was hurriedly running away, and the surroundings were already desolate. When the city was attacked, the protector used the technique of summoning spring. The dense trees in front of the tower had all withered, and even the water underground had become bitter and astringent. The smell of the wind was filled with a strong smell of decay. Is it too late? The protector swung down from the air with a sword, and the black shadow couldn't dodge enough and could only draw out 2 swords to resist. The red and blue twin blades touched the dragon's singing sword, and the huge demonic power spread out in a moment. The already unstable tower collapsed into powder in an instant, and several surviving Zhuge family attendants lay on the ground to avoid this impact. They were about to rush to attack the protector, but were lifted by a hand and crushed into a mist of blood by the huge demonic power. Even if I surrender, I will die, won't I, Huo Bufan? Zhuge Ao pushed away the Dharmapala and stared at the dragon's singing sword that killed countless of his brothers and sisters. Yes, But if you die, I can guarantee that all the remaining monsters in Yaoguang city will live, said Huo Bufan. Zhuge Ao laughed and said, do you think I would believe what you say? Zhuge Ao pulled up a stone pillar from the ground and threw it at Huo Bufan. Never repent. A white light split open the stone pillar, took a gentle breath, and then swung a sword towards Zhuge Ao. Throwing out the sun and moon will blade to block the sword energy, Zhuge Ao arrived at the ruins of the tower. He punched hard and threw a green light into the southeast, northwest, and northwest corners of Yaoguang city. Suddenly, the demonic force suppressed Huo Bufan, and the dragon song sword was also sucked into the ground, causing his body to lie on the ground. I thought I wouldn't need it, it seems. Zhuge Ao inserted his 2 knives into the ground, and the green light covered the city of Yaoguang. All the monsters stopped, and at that moment, even the drizzle that was originally falling in the sky was stuck in mid-air. Zhuge Ao walked up to Huo Bufan and said, your master's book is with me. I have created it based on the things in the book. Although I cannot control you for a lifetime, it will still be possible for a while. Moreover, as a self-righteous and conceited fool like you, the most important person will definitely be with you, right? Zhuge Ao pulled out his double swords and stabbed Huo Bufan. Blood droplets gathered on the ground and formed a small ball, which flew towards the city with a gentle blow. Huo Qing asked vaguely, can we say it's the queen? This is the dumbest thing I've ever done. The screen shattered, and a white light made Huo Qing unable to open his eyes. When the footage came again, the siege had completely ended, and all the surviving monsters in Yaoguang city were concentrated in the square where they entered the city. Huo Bufan was nowhere to be seen, and only He Qinggang brought a group of soldiers from the hidden dragon pavilion. They carried firearms and searched for these old, weak, women, and children monsters one by one. Even the soles of their shoes had to be thoroughly checked. Huo Bufan walked out of the camp and leaned towards He Qinggang's ear, saying, let's take action. What are you saying? They have already. Huo Bufan blocked He Qinggang's mouth, and the dragon sword had already pressed against his neck. Hands on, I know how to repair the demon pill. This is a forbidden technique, are you crazy? Through the figure of Huo Bufan, a bleeding hand in the tent slid off the bed, and a faint voice was captured by He Qinggang's ears, Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao.